Okay, we're back with the third chapter of Mesechet Kinim. Just to recall, the first two chapters, first chapter had definitions of individuals, definitions of groups, mixtures of individuals with individuals, mixture of individual with group, mixture of groups with equal size, mixture of groups with non-equal size. Second chapter got us into all kinds of cases of partial mixing and concludes to show us that there are even cases where there are multiple opinions which have validity, and not just a single case which is that decides for us what we would be best practices to do. Now, all of that was in the case where we understand that we have a problem. What's the best advice for dealing with the problem? The third chapter really brings us into a different situation. It's but what if a problem has already happened? How do we understand what our situation is? It's b'diavad cases, not lechatchila cases. Okay, so let's look at that. The chapter starts b'med devarim amurim, which is the chapter starts here. Moshe Rabbeinu is giving us extra cases, because b'med devarim amurim is an expression that's used in Chazal for Moshe Rabbeinu is telling us. The Kohen Nimlach, in the case of a Kohen who is Nimlach, he all of the cases that we've had now are cases where the Kohen understood what the situation is in front of him and acted correctly. Now we say, Aval b'Kohen she'eino Nimlach. What happens in the case where the Kohen thought that everything was okay and really there was a problem? And he proceeded as if everything was okay, such as echad dezu ve'echad dezu. One woman has one pair and another woman has one pair. Or shnayim dezu v'shnayim dezu, two pair with two pair. Or shalosh dezu v'shalosh dezu, three pair with three pair. Asa kula namala. And the Kohen thought that all of these birds were all olas, so he made them all olas. He did all of them above the line on the Mizbeach. Meksa kosher, meksa puzzle. Half of them are kosher and half of them are no good. Because of this mixture, half of them were supposed to be olas. So if it's from woman A and woman B, woman A had a chatas and an ola, woman B had a chatas and an ola. They were all brought as olas. So the ola of woman A and the ola of woman B are good, which is half. Kula namata. What if he brings all of them as chatases? He brings all of them underneath the line out, the chutas on the mizbeach, the parallel line on the horizontal line on the mizbeach. Meksa kasher, meksa puzzle. All of the chatases in this mixed up group that he should have noticed at first, all of the chatases are good, and all of the olas have turned out to be no good. Meksa kasher, meksa puzzle, half and half. Chetzi lamala v'chetzi lamata. So what about the case where he brings half of this mixture above and half below? Et shelamala meksa kasher meksa puzzle. The ones that he brings above, half of those are kosher and half of them are puzzle. And et shelamata meksa kasher meksa puzzle. Half of those that are below are kosher and half are puzzle. Let's see what the case looks like. Three cases. I have Mrs. A's birds and Mrs. B's birds. They got mixed together. The Kohen didn't know. All of them were brought above the line on the Mizbeach. So the Ola of the A and the Ola of B are kosher, and the Chatas of A and the Chatas of B are not kosher, and that's just the way we have it. What happens if Mrs. A's birds and Mrs. B's birds get mixed together? In any number, because it's half and half. It's half of A and half of B. And they all get used below the line. Okay, so the chatas of one of the chatases of A and one of the chatases of B are good, and the other ones, sorry, can't use them. Last case, what happens? I have A and B gets mixed together, and they get used half above and half below. So what's the worst thing that can happen? All of A got used above and all of B got used below, or vice versa. So one ola is good and one chatas is good. So half of the ones above, in the worst case, are good, and half of the ones below in the case. Of course, it could have turned out differently. It could have been that there's one A and one A above and one A and one B below. Okay, there are best case scenarios that can happen, but we're worried about what do we do if it had happened that the worst case happened. That's what Halakha is trying to find. What do you do if the worst case happens? Because you want to deal all the way up until the worst case. Okay, so that's that Mishnah. So here we are in the second Mishnah of the third parak of Mesechet Kinim, and it's in the first Mishnah we dealt with the cases where the numbers are equal, and now we're going to deal with cases that are not equal. Again, in the case of Kohen she'eino nimlach, of a Kohen who thought he understood the case, but really the case is very different than what he did, and what's the best we can do now? What he's done, what he's going to do. The case is echad lezu, shnayim lezu, shalosh lezu, ve'es lezu, u'mea lezu. What if I have one woman who has one pair and another woman with 2 pairs? Or another woman with 3 pairs, or another woman with 10 pairs, or another one with 100 pairs. It could be any pair of these, one with 2, or 2 with 3, or 3 with 10, or 10 with 100, or it can be all of them mixed together. One woman with 2, with the second woman with the third. However you want to mix it. This is the case is uneven combinations. Asa kula namala. If the Kohen took all of these birds and did them all as olas, above the chut sikra, above the horizontal line on the mizbeach, meksa kasher, meksa pasul. So all of the olas of this group are kosher, which means half of the number of them are kosher, and half of them, the ones that were supposed to be chatases, are pasul, are no good. Kula namatan. He made them all chatases. And he put all the blood of all of them below the horizontal line of the chut sikra mizbeach, meksa kasher, meksa pasul, because half of them should have been chatases, so half of them were done correctly, but half of them should have been olas and weren't done correctly. Okay, meksa chetzi lamala v'chetzi lamatan hameruba kasher. What if he used half of them above and half of them below? Hamaruba, the larger group is kosher. Now this is a very problematic language. We're going to see that the Mishnah tries to explain it, and then we're going to explain what the Mishnah is really explaining and prove it. Okay? Zeh haklal. Here's the general rule. Kol makom shato yechol lechalok et hakinim. Every place where you can divide up the groups of nests. V'lo yumi ishel achad ben milamalam ben milamatan, and there's not going to be from any specific woman that in the worst case it's forced to be that some of her birds are above and some of her birds are below. Then meksa kosher or meksa pasul. Half of the birds are kosher and half of them are pasul. However, kol makom she'ena tayichol lachalok et hakinim. However, in the cases where there's no way that you can divide up the birds, that there's always going to be in that case a one woman where she's going to have ben milamalam ben milamatan. Some of her birds are going to get used above and some of their birds are going to below. Hamaruba kosher, the larger group is kosher. And because it uses the word hamaruba kosher again, it's not clear until you do the homework what this maruba is. So let's look at these cases and prove what the maruba is. What is the larger number? Let's take the easy case. Let's say I have 1 pair and 2 pair and 3 pair. And they divided so that all of Mrs. A's birds can be above and all of Mrs. B's birds can be above and all of Mrs. C's birds can be below. So I'll say the Ola of Mrs. A is good, the Ola of Mrs. B is good, and the Chatases of Mrs. C is good. That's 6 out of 12 birds, that's half. Wherever you can divide it, where you don't have any woman that's forced in the worst case to be that her birds are either above and below, half kosher and half pasul. Now let's take a different case. Let's go to the case of 2 and 3 and 4 pairs. Okay? So 2 and 3 pairs, 4 pairs is 4 and 6 and 8 birds, which is 18 birds in total. So what I want to have is 9 birds above and 9 birds below. Who are the 9 birds? We'll call these A, B, and C again. So I have, let's put all the C birds below. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? And that's fine. All the C birds, check. They're above. All the B birds, let's put them above. B, 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 B. That's good. So here we've got 8 so far. Here we've got 6 so far. Wonderful. Now we've got the 8 birds left. 4 birds. How do we use them? Well, 1 of them has to go below, and 3 of them has to go above. So we have a problem that no matter how you mix these up, there's no way that I can do it so that there's not at least one woman who her birds are divided, that some of them have to be above and some have to be below. Now, what happens to these birds? Well, from the birds of B, I've got 3 good olas. Wonderful. From the birds of C, I've got 4 good chattises. What happens to the birds of A? Well, A for sure has a chattis, but A has 2 olas that are good. So here I've got 5 that are good, and here I've got 5 that are good. That's 10. What does it mean, 10? That's the meruba. When I try to divide this up into 2 different sets, the larger of the 2 sets, no matter how I try to equal them, the larger of the 2, that's the number that are kosher. It's not the woman who has the largest number of birds. The answer is not 8. The answer is 10. Okay? And that's the trick to the Mishnah, to understand this idea of the meruba, where you can't divide it up into 2 groups. The larger one is kosher. Which is the larger one? It's the larger group, because it's the group that's forced into an overflow to have both above and below. Not the largest woman. However, in the Mishnah itself, you would not see this unless you do your homework, because the example that the Mishnah gives is echad lezu, ushnayim lezu, ushalosh lezu, ve'eser lezu, u'me'er lezu. 1 pair, with 2 pairs, with 3 pairs, with 10 pairs, with 100 pairs. And the problem of the example is, even though it repeats an example that we had earlier in a lechatchila case, to show you how it works, the problem with the example is, if I add 1 pair plus 2 pairs plus 3 pairs plus 10 pairs together, it doesn't give me a different result. The 100 pairs of birds, the woman with the largest number of birds is also the group with the largest number of birds that's forced into the overflow. So the example that they give gives me an ambiguous example, where I have to find a different example to see what is the actual meruba. That's this Mishnah.